So, what is the zone? When athletes talk about being in the zone, and when you spoke about being in the zone, what is actually happening? What is actually going on inside here and inside here when you get into this special place? Often this term is also referred to as the flow state, and there's been lots of research done on this by numerous different psychologists over the years. And something unique is happening here when you're able to perform in this way, when you can get into this specific state, which is what it is. So the zone, or the flow state, is a form of trance, if you like. A trance where the world changes, your internal world changes, so it feels and looks and sounds like that the outside world is different in some way too. And when you've managed to get into this neurophysiological state, your performance can change, can't it? So our mind is operating at 5 different levels of frequency. We have this kind of outlier frequency called the gamma brainwave frequencies, where these very, very altered states of consciousness actually occur. These blissful type moments that people can have. But for the vast majority of the time, we are operating in a beta brainwave state, the state that you're most likely kind of in now, the state that you spend a lot of your time during the day. This is more a conscious state where you're more aware, quite heavily aware of what you're doing, what you're saying, conversations, what's happening. It can also be the state that you get into when you get over anxious. So when somebody becomes nervous or over anxious, that means that the beta brainwave states are going quite fast inside your mind and moving quickly. It says it's trying to bring the mind and body to be alert to something. And then we move down from beta into alpha, where you start to calm down. And then you can move down into theta, which is calming down the brain waves and slowing them down even more. And then we progress down into delta, which is deep sleep essentially. So when you get into deep REM sleep at night, or when you sleep, the brain waves are slowed down very heavily. And this is also very similar to a deep state of hypnosis. And this zone, if you like, this flow state, it occurs just as your brain waves are slowing down to the point where it moves from alpha down into theta. It's just in between this threshold between those two brainwave frequencies. And this is the flow state. This is that bliss point where when you hit this zone, when you're able to get your mind and your body to be harmonized as one, then everything just flows, as they say. And this is what all athletes are striving for. And when you undertake one of my programs, I teach athletes, I teach my clients how to consistently step into the flow state. So perhaps you could just spend a moment just remembering one of your greatest ever performances. What does this look like when you're remembering back to this performance that you had? What do you see? What can you hear? How do you feel when you were performing in this way? How are you actually going about executing your skills, making decisions? Because this performance that you're now remembering and imagining is different to some of your lesser performances, those performances where you haven't quite hit it, where you haven't quite performed in the way that you wanted to. And your mind has codified these two experiences in two completely different ways. And your mind also has organized this state neurologically so it can identify this is when you are in, or I am in the flow state, and this is when I'm not. This is when I'm in a state of frustration and anger. This is when I'm feeling the pressure down here. This is when I'm completely free of all of that. And you are striving with your training, with your performance, to get into this state consistently. And you will have done, as you're remembering it now. We've all experienced it when our performance just felt completely different. One of the things which comes with the flow state, with the zone, is this feeling of effortlessness. And this is a time when often your performance can be quite creatively spontaneous, when you do some things that you've not even practiced before. You're just allowing your intuitive subconscious mind, all of those motor programs, all of those schemas which are stored in your cerebellum, are just flowing out without conscious thought, without analysing what you're doing. So essentially what you're doing when you're lowering down those brainwave states, you're turning off consciousness. And this is what's happening as you're gradually going down to sleep at night. You hit the bed, head on the pillow, and your brain starts off in beta, and then it starts to slow down to alpha, and you're in that in-between state where you're just kind of like drifting in between, and then you start to drop to theta, and then again as you progress down into deeper sleep, you get into delta. So you're just trying to be this place where you're consciously aware, but only to a certain degree. And this is critical. If you're really gonna push on and keep maximizing your ability, keep stretching what you're capable of, the more often you can get into the zone, into the flow state, the more you're gonna perform to your truest potential. But when you've got doubts about yourself, when you're feeling the pressure, when you're nervous about something, maybe when you don't quite believe in yourself, or when somebody has said something or an event has happened which has knocked you out of state, it's knocked you out of your stride. People say that, I'm knocked out my stride, I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling up for it. You haven't been able to get yourself into the correct zone, the correct optimal state of mind. And one of the best things that you can do to help you get into this state, without learning some of my techniques, you can still help yourself get into these frames of mind. And one of the best ways of doing this is going back and remembering when you performed at your best. Because when you perform at your best, you will have been in some form of flow state, and there are degrees within that. So there'll be, your top 10 performances that you've ever had. Even within that, there'll be a couple, 2 or 3, which are still better than the other ones. But go back and identify them. If you have a journal or just a piece of paper, but I'd recommend you getting some kind of journal where you're analysing your performances, where you can talk about how it went, what went well, what you could improve on. But go back now or after this video and identify your top 10 performances, or at least your top 5, and just start making notes on what it looked like. What did it look like when you performed in this way? What can you see about yourself when you're performing that way? How are you talking to yourself? Did you talk to yourself at all? Because often this is one of the key crucial differences between when you're in the flow state or not, that self-talk turns off. You have this deeper intuitive self which can talk to you, which can come through. But when you're consciously over-analysing things, your deeper creative self can't get its message through, or you're not sure when it's telling you or speaking to you because of the conscious over-analytical mind getting in the way. So spend some time after this video going back through and identifying your best 5 performances at least, and write down what you can remember seeing when you're thinking back, when you just imagine being back there again now. Just notice what you can see about yourself. Notice how you're moving, how you're executing your specific skills, your specific techniques. Notice what sounds you can hear. Notice the volume of them. Notice the speed of sounds. What's the colour? What's the brightness like? If you play with a particular piece of equipment, what does this look like? And remember this. and then move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and start to identify some common themes between all the 5 different things. And there will be specific characteristics of your flow states, of your performances when you're in the zone. And then just keep running through them. Just imagine, just spend some time before you go and train, before you go and perform, sitting in your mind with your eyes closed and being back in those places, seeing what you can see, hearing what you could hear when you was in the flow state, feeling how it felt. And then imagine going training or going competing in the exact same way. Imagine yourself seeing it in the same ways and going about performing in that way. And when you start to get into habits like this, you start to make this more familiar. The mind loves the familiar. And you, if you're not consistently performing at your best, that means it hasn't yet familiarized a specific pattern. So the more you spend time, just 10, 15, 20 minutes, do it. 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. Do it before you go to bed. Do it when you wake up in the morning. These are the 2 best times to do it, because you're naturally moving in and out of those different brainwave states. As you're drifting down to sleep and when you're just waking up, you're moving in and out of delta, and your mind is getting into those brainwave states. So just to recap, remember 5 times at least when you performed at your best, and then pick each one and identify the things about them, what they look like, how it looked, how it sounded, how it felt, how you were moving. Yeah? Notice anything about this performance which you think is important. Notice, as I said, notice how you're talking to yourself. If you talk to yourself, if there's much self-talk at all, there may well be. Sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't. And then start getting into the habit of spending time before you're going training and competing, and imagine yourself being in these states, doing what you was doing back then, and doing what you're doing in the next day or in the next few hours. Start trying these techniques, start trying these simple needle movers which are just going to start bringing you closer and closer to your peak performance every time. And if and when you do this, just drop me some comments in the link below and let me know how you're getting on. And if you'd like further help in taking your performance to the next level, because when you're the type of person who's wanting to achieve excellence in sport, you need to start looking for these shortcuts. You need to start looking for these secrets which are going to start to unlock new doors for you. And if you're the type of person who's really striving for excellence in your sport, then just get in touch with me. Get in touch. You can drop me a message, you can find me on Instagram, on YouTube, you can get me in touch with me on the website and email me or give me a call, and I'm more than happy to arrange a free consultation with you where we can start mapping out exactly how I can help you based on your needs, your sport, your targets and your ambitions. But it all else, just try some of these things out and see how you get on, and get into the habit of doing them every single day.